Rolf Traub was born in 1936 near Leipzig during the dark years of Hitler's Nazi Germany. While the Führer and his war machine were planning to conquer Europe, Rolf, as a young child, was starting to form pictures and concepts of not only the world that surrounded him, but of a God he believed did not really exist. And if he did, a God that did not seem to care.
I was brought up by my grandfather, because my father was always away in the front.
Rolf recalls his early childhood years living in a Nazi camp while his father was undergoing training as a soldier.
There was in front of a kaserne, there was a military training station. And we were having a parade there, and I was watching them. And one of the soldiers called me with a finger. I was naked there, to come over and stand on the parade. And then I came out and stood with the soldiers at the parade there, greeting Heil Hitler. I was getting with my Opa a bicycle, and we went hamstern. He had a good going business, getting food in from the farmers, and we were getting on a bicycle, and we went for Wurzeln to Machen or in the farming area. All of a sudden, 2 airplanes came out of nowhere, and they were hammering us there, and we were ducking there because the bullets were hitting us now.
He vividly recalls witnessing the German people's demonstrations of nationalistic pride, fervor, and passionate dedication to Adolf Hitler as they watched a Nazi parade from the balcony of their apartment.
There was winter, and we had no heating. And the Russian made they transported coal or briquettes from one town to other, and we were stealing coals there. And we had one of our mates on top, and he threw it down, and we collected afterwards. And we had to carry all for miles home to our house. My grandfather saw the writing on the wall. The war was lost already, but the east was still not divided yet. That was the last train that left for Gutenberg over the border in East Germany. And we were on that. And my Opa sacrificed himself for he was very much attached to me, on my family. And he made a sacrifice because he knew he would never see us again.
Things were very tough on the Traub family during this time, as Rolf's father tried to find any way possible to provide for their needs. In contrast to the sacrificial love demonstrated by his grandfather, there were other so-called Christians and friends who demonstrated a great lack of neighborly love.
My father was unemployed. We had hunger. He had a good friend with a school friend, and he was a potato farmer. And he went once to him and begged for money for potatoes, and he didn't give him anything. That affected me very much because he was a church member, and he was in the front rows of a church, and that put me off. We were so angry, and we shut the windows. On Saturday afternoon we shut the windows.
When Rolf turned 14, he began to study as an apprentice pattern maker. His father was adamant that he become qualified in some trade.
At first I wanted to become an architect, but there was no and then a forester, and there was no vacancy. My father was very adamant because he had no education himself, but he wanted me to have an education. And my grandfather said, Handwerker hat goldenen Boden. You know, with a trade you can always get fixed up. He got me a job for apprentice, the pattern makers. Where I got my job for the apprenticeship by Stoll. That was a knitting machine factory, and I got a friend with a manager there, and he was a very big soccer fan, yeah. And he used to sponsor people that were talented, and he wanted me to get in there. We had very good trainers there. There was from Essen, from ex-Nazis, from. He was training the SS, the Schutzstandarte. He was very good, and I got actually good groundwork for my future, because he made a rule that if everyone drinks or smokes, in my team is out, yeah.
It was during this time while training for swimming that Rolf met Havert, and together they discovered their passion for Africa and began to make plans for their adventure.
We had good relationship, and we were swimming together in a club. And then we one night we walked home, and there was a newspaper slipped out, and I read it about Mau Mau, and that put me onto Africa. We looked for Tarzan films, yeah, and that excited us very much. I mean, we were innocent there. We didn't know God, because we were growing up. There is no God in the world, you know. And we decided there, and then we shook hands on that, and we made a pact there, and that was the plan laid. And we had to clear with our parents, because his mother wouldn't let him go, and my parents also didn't want to allow, because I had to really shake hands with my father that I won't leave, and I can't do that. Yeah, he actually challenged me on that. You won't get further than Italy when you come back. I wasn't running away real, but I had a plan. I had an urge there to get out. His mother wouldn't let him go, so we had to speak out at night. We took a train from München to Trieste in Yugoslavia. And then later on, we heard zwei Deutsche gesucht mit Hund. The German police were after us to arrest us. My parents were very much involved in that, to get me back on with police. I mean, I left I had finished my apprenticeship, and I took 2 months' salary still in my pocket, and that was a little bit of money that we had, and I painted for Landrat Kern a big picture, and he paid me for it. And that was my first picture I painted actually commercially or somebody else.
From Germany through to Yugoslavia, Havert, his dog Bengu, and Rolf travelled from city to city. But just before continuing their journey to Greece, the money Rolf had saved was stolen, and he had to resort to stowing away on a ship to get there.
Havert we had a pocket, and he kept his money there. And mine was in a tent, and it got stolen. And we didn't want to go by foot anymore. And Herbert made a remark there. There's the Istra, that's a ship in the harbor at Dubrovnik, and he will smuggle me in, and he could pay for his trip. It was only 90 marks, huh? And he had that paid. And for Bengo, it's half that. He had that, and he was legal there, and he got me at night when I got into the lifeboat. He brought me provision there, and he organized something with the chef there to smuggle some food for me in the lifeboat. And then 3 days out of the harbor, on the way to Athens, they came and looked for some skiers there, and they discovered me. And then the captain was a typical German hater, because he was in the army too, and he hated the Germans, and he had no mercy for me when I got my passport brought by him. He said he will hand me over to the next ship, or the German consul. And that was the end of me. And I saw on the coast of Albania, that was next to the channel of Corinth. Then I wanted to jump the ship and go there to save myself. I wouldn't like to be sent back now to Germany, because that would be the end of me, yeah, on my trip, yeah. And I was ready to jump, and then a friend we met, he was American student, and he convinced the captain then to make a hold on my exportation, and then things changed in my favor.
Once they were safely in Greece, they had time to take in the interesting aspects of Greek culture and way of life, and enjoyed some of the memorable moments made possible by Bengu, who created quite a stir with some of his adventurous antics.
There was a swimming tower out there, and we had a nice time. When Bengo was with us, he happened to go up on the steps there, but he didn't find the way down, or he couldn't turn down on the steps. And then we jumped, and he was yelling up there, and not knowing what to do. And then he jumped too, and that came attraction then for the whole beach. There was a major commotion there, and the next morning when we also swam there again, and we did the same performance. We lay on the beach there, as things happen, we got involved there and they spoke German, and she was a German student, and she spoke perfectly German, because at that time we had no English, we had no knowledge of English, and I fell in love with her, with Mary Siskopolo.
There were times when money was scarce and they needed food, that Bengu would catch a chicken for them that they would grill over the fire. At other times, Bengu would bring bread from the bakery and they would share it together. But it was in Turkey, when Bengu's feet became injured, that Herbert began to reconsider his commitment to the adventure.
We discovered that the paws were getting loose, yeah. And we had to carry him, and we built a sling, and we put Bengo in there, and that's how we carried him to Adana in Turkey, and he got a jeep started passing by, and inquired where we going, and then he got a job for him as a botanic. he had a nursery there, and he was just getting a job, and that paid for his return ticket. It was a very sad moment. We had to part, but with the intention of getting together again afterwards. He wanted to bring the dog home, and then he come after me, and we meet in Cairo again, but it didn't happen.
Rolf left Turkey, continuing on his journey till he finally reached Egypt, where in Cairo he made contact with a government official he had met while swimming in competition in Germany. He was immediately made to feel at home. The friendliness and hospitality of the Egyptian people left a lasting impression on him, invoking a desire for something deeper in his own soul.
I mean, the Egyptians are very, very passionate, friendly. You don't turn invitation down. That's an insult to them. And they had virtually planned for me for 6 days already in advance that I would have to stay with them. And one of this had a gallery in Cairo, and he gave me a contract, and he made an agreement with me to make some painting for him, and he would sell it for I don't know the price. That was his profit, but not mine. I mean, I had now friends with the top echelon in the Egyptian army, and they were Nasser's supporters or employees, or what you can say. And they said that Nasser is very, very German friendly, and I must meet him. And we made a date there with him, with Salah al-Shayat. That was his secretary, and he was a very nice man. And we got on very well. And he ushered me in there with Gamal Abdel Nasser, and I was very impressed with him, and he with me. When I got in there was a big desk like this. I noticed on the right-hand side was the Quran, and on the left-hand side was Mein Kampf. I was looking for something. I didn't know what yet. And I grabbed anything, but it didn't make sense to me, the Muslim religion, because for the simple reason they have no forgiveness there. And I read through the Quran there. I wanted something, because something attracted me with that. They're very, very friendly.
After spending a considerable time in Cairo, Rolf made his way south towards Abyssinia. In Suez, he met Hans Kriegelstein, an ex-soldier in the SS.
A coincidence, he was sitting there on a bench in Suez and had not paid the bill for his hotel, and I could help him there. And we became friends, and he was in the SS army and in Stalingrad, so he was a very hardcore man. Yeah? And we went by foot through Egypt, and I wanted to go to Abyssinia, and that was on our way. So the officer there, he had my passport the other way around. Yeah? And I noticed now that he wasn't competent there. And we had a valid visa for Abyssinia, and they wouldn't let us through. So the guy said, I'm going to kill him. He would have killed him, yeah? And I said, no, there's not a way to go. We find work for you in Aswan. And so we went, he didn't shoot him or finish him off.
An unusual job opportunity presented itself at the Aswan Dam, where Rolf worked for a few months and made a number of new friends.
Got a job there, and I also got a job, but with sent up, because they didn't need somebody but they needed a different, as a pattern maker, I was useless to them, and they couldn't employ me. So they said, if I wanted to go in for surveyor, we sort of surveyor, and they were battling there because of the climate. Yeah. So I said to them, I will, and then they gave me a month's training there, and then I went down with the dumpy level by myself, and I surveyed there under the Aswan Dam. Yeah, there was 45 degrees, and when you came out there, it was like a stove hitting you. Yeah, and I could stand the heat better than the European in general, because they had a problem there. They were offering fantastic salaries, but nobody could do the work. Yeah? So I was the only one unqualified for the job, but I got it. And they took a whole risk there. They didn't want to let the job down. When I worked in Aswan Dam, I got friendly with Heinz Runge, and he invited me to his home. Yeah? And there I met his wife. Nelly Runge was very friendly, but in particular with the adventurous spirits, because I was riding with her in a camel in the desert. And then when the job was, I think, half a year or 9 months later, I got cold feet because I wanted to be out. I didn't want to miss the French company was digging from the other side, and they were all exact, yeah. And I didn't want to take that embarrassment that the tunnels doesn't meet up. But I got later on that they weren't far out more than 6 inches. Huh? Yeah, when they finally broke through.
When Rolf left the Aswan Dam with the intention of continuing on his journey through Africa, he once again found himself faced with unexpected turns. This time he found himself being thrown into jail.
I had to send my passport to the Office of Immigration in Cairo, and they gave me just a slip for the moment. And in Kenya, when I got to Cairo, at the station of Kenya, that was in the middle between Cairo and Aswan, the police came and searched for they were checking on the passport, and I had no passport, so they arrested me and put me in jail. And then I said to them, my passport is in Cairo. How can that happen here? So they said to me, that's your problem, not mine. And they were very unfriendly. And so I said to them, I wanted to phone Salah al-Shayed, that was secretary of Nasser. And they wouldn't believe me, huh? They said that Pipsqueak wants to know the president secretary. And I was very presumptuous. So later on they ignored me. And then somebody said, well, they got in cold feet, you know. There might be some story too. And then they they phoned Salah al-Shayed, and then they were very they were getting hammered there, and said they must give me a first-class ticket. I want to go to Cairo, and that's what I did.
After Rolf left Cairo with his passport and other documents in hand, he once more set off on his journey south through Africa. En route, he met Nigmor, who was driving through Africa in a Volkswagen Beetle, ultimately with the intention of reaching South Africa. After getting acquainted, Nigmor invited Rolf to join him as he desired to have some company. Part of the journey took them through the Nubian desert, and due to the fact that the authorities would not allow them to drive, they were now, while sitting in the car, being transported by rail. The temperature was 45 degrees in the shade, and they were extremely low on water. At one of the stops in the middle of the desert, Nigmor began using the little water they had to splash on himself to cool down. This infuriated Rolf, and very soon after all the water had been used up, they were now stuck in the heat, fighting for their lives from heat exhaustion while a sandstorm raged outside. This was another one of those landmark experiences in Rolf's journey that caused him to call out to the God that he still was not sure really existed, and if he did, if he would actually hear him and come to his aid.
And then we came to a station, there was no water. And that's when I first collapsed and said, now if you are God, show me where you are. And I made that deal with him. Or not let that go. I wanted to know who you are. Show me a sign if you are God. I really pled with him there.
God heard Rolf and answered his cry for help. This experience was a vital step in the spiritual journey that would finally lead Rolf to a full acceptance of God. Some of Rolf's journey on his way south was on foot, and at one time he had to pass through tall elephant grass, which was treacherously sharp. The grass cut into his legs and caused bleeding and swelling. In the African wild, where there are lions and leopards, being an injured traveler on foot was not a reassuring prospect. But once again, God stepped in and kept his hand over Rolf.
Because my legs started swelling up. And I was in the bush alone. And there were lions around, and leopards, yeah, and I couldn't get on. And then some native found me there and took me in and healed me with herbs also.
Then there was the experience in Ethiopia, where Rolf arrived just in time for the Haile Selassie celebration preparations. He made friends with a German and a Swiss, and they were approached to help build stands for the event.
There was no contractor there because the locals were getting prepared and they were not shaping. And so they were desperate. And so the Swiss guy, Heinrich Meyer, he was 26. I mean, nobody gives a contract like this to a 17-year-old. Huh? The Arabian Trading Company was looking for a construction worker to build their stands. And so Heinrich negotiated with them, and they were prepared to take us on and to give us some money too. And we made an agreement with them because it was only half a year, no, not even 5 months, that the shows had to go off. and the job has to be ready. But he made them agreement with them that we paid us out regardless of finish 5 days before, because the authorities knew that we were illegal there and we had no working permit. So they were very looking forward to arrest us and push us to Bischoftu. And Bischoftu was a very down-named, you don't want to land on Bischoftu. It was like Sing Sing or Alcatraz. Huh? And we didn't want to get a chance or take a chance. And then we had 4 horses, and we planned 4 days before the show opened, or 5 days to make a duck at night. And we had to go by night, yeah? Otherwise they would have smelled us.
Their escape took them through dangerous territory, and part of that risk was having to travel through areas where cannibalism was still being practiced.
The Nyams they had two years before me had practiced cannibalism, and then South Sudan was declared English territory, and they put a stop to it. And now they had isolated cases still of man-eating. Heinrich Meyer we got out of the tent in the morning, and then we were confronted with warriors, and they were not friendly looking. So Heinrich Meyer chased them away with shots.
Once again, in this experience, Rolf witnessed God's hand of intervention. Another demonstration to him of a God of love, contrary to his childhood comprehensions of God's character. Shortly after this experience, en route to the south of Abyssinia, their horses and supplies were stolen, and once again Rolf found himself traveling on foot through the African bush.
We walked through the next day. And then we came to South Abyssinia, and there was a Sudan Interior Mission, and there was some friendly missioners, and they took us in, and we couldn't go on any further because they warned us there is no good by foot, but they said we have a camel caravan coming here, and I think that they would be inviting you to be part of that.
As they traveled, word of their escape and fugitive status started to spread.
They knew it by name now. You're Mr. Amsel, you're Mr. Meyer, and you're Mr. Traub, and I've got bad news for you. Mr. Meyer can stay because he's Swiss, and we had to get out by 24 hours. They gave us 24 hours to leave the country, yeah? And that was not possible. We tramped to Mombasa, and that took a day or a half, and there was no ship there that we could hire or board on. So we made to Tanganyika, north to Tanga. And there was a even worse immigration officer. He was very, very unfriendly to us, and he wants to arrest us and send us back to Nairobi. And so we bought with the last bit of money a dhow, and in desperation, 3 days we got in a storm. Sardani was we shipwrecked there, and we swam ashore. That was the worst nightmare of my life, I tell you that. So the other two were fed up, and I decided to go south on my own, without money. But the natives helped me there, because they were on my side. They made me go inland, away from the beach, because they knew that the authorities were looking for me. And then a little while ago, there was a jeep coming, and usually I stepped aside, and this time I didn't, for some reason or other. And there was a European in the back of the bakkie, or the jeep, and the name was Fugger. He introduced me to the owner of the farm, Shiva Shivinci. They had all the Sisal estate there, taken over from the German cheap. One day I came about a Golovan, or a contraption that was parked there, and I asked them, what is wrong with that? And I saw branch of Engelsdorf by Leipzig, the mark on it. So I said, my Opa worked for them. So that was sort of a challenge for me, in honor of my grandfather, because he might have been part of that. And so they had something missing of the gears. I can't remember where it is, but I fixed a pattern, and we cast a brass part of it, and got it going again, yeah, in the factory there. So they want to keep me there because I was sort of an asset to them. They didn't hand me over to the authority because of that. I was kept there anonymous.
In the southern part of Tanganyika, as Rolf started to near Mozambique, he was once again faced with challenges, and once again, after contracting the strongest strain of malaria, he saw the providences of God at work.
In the south of Tanganyika, I came to a station of immigration, or Informaro, a British commissioner. And he gave me a skari to guide me down to the jungle of the Rovuma, because you mustn't forget, Rovuma is a big river. You have got no idea how big it is. Something like the Amazon, but it's got very, very big vegetation before you get to it. So I arranged with Ascari to have me a boat ready. He knew all about the locals, and we arranged a price, 10 shillings or so, to get me over. And in the middle there was a sandbank, and then he stopped, and he didn't want to go further unless I accept his price. And then he had me there, and I got angry with him, and I beat him up and then he said, Asante Boana. And then he took me over to the other bank, and without any trouble, and I went for 3 days through the jungle there on my own. 10 days after I contracted malaria, and I saw Kirimba was on the other side, and you can see it with the eyes. And I thought I can make it, but I didn't calculate the incoming tide, And that's where I think I got saved again by God, because it's not possible that you can get that by chance. because if you get that deep in the water, you get ripped away and washed out to sea. So God, I believe definitely that there was a divine hand at work. Some native found me, and they contacted Gessner, who was the owner of that land, and he invited me, or he took me, and with Prima Queen and Atta Queen, we had it cured in 3 days.
Shortly after this, Rolf left Mozambique and finally crossed over the border into South Africa. He ended up in Johannesburg, where he began working in the building trade. In 1959, after finding out about some available work in the same trade in Southwest Africa, Namibia today, he moved there and settled in the capital, Windhoek. He had been there for a while when one day he saw and responded to an advert in the newspaper that caught his attention, and as a result, a new adventure of his life commenced. While he and Ternissa, his wife, were looking at old pictures from that time, the fond memories came flooding back and Rolf began reminiscing.
That was a story that I found in the newspaper, a man looking for giving away a cup, so he put an advert in the newspaper. And I read the article, and I was there like a shot. Yeah. You can imagine me. I didn't know what to do with it. I made a plan to keep it, because a friend of mine, he was a big game hunter, and he allowed me there on his farm that was outside Windhoek for 5 kilometers. And then I found a cage, a suitable cage for him with this friend of mine. Yeah? And I had a contract with a butcher. In those days it was cheap meat. Twice a week I fed him. That Herman Janke was a friend of mine, and he had a bakkie, and we one day got called by a lion club, Lion International Club, that from America, that they were looking for a pet lion, and so they couldn't find one, but they only had big ones, and they wouldn't be able to handle him, and they wanted to get him as an image to the president of the Lion International Club from America. So they approached me, and I said, yeah, if they cover the cost, I will bring him there. So Herman Janke, who was a friend of mine, I told him to drive through, not through Windhoek, but he drove right through Kaiserstraße, yeah, and there was a policeman bicycling along, and he cut him off. You know, he saw in his rear view mirror that the lion was sticking out his head at the left side, and the policeman got afraid when he saw it. He was right looking into the lion's face, so he fell off his bicycle. There were hundreds of cars there, and I was frightened that was a problem now, because she might jump, and she did jump. I thought this is now another tragedy.
Rolf did manage to get Sheba under control, and the rest of the proceedings continued without incidents. There were a few other incidents that took place that finally put Rolf under pressure to relinquish his ownership of Sheba. Thankfully, though, he was able to get her into the Windhoek Zoo and still visited her regularly. He fondly recalled a humorous incident that occurred on one of those visits.
Every second day I was out there, and I could put my hand in his mouth and play with him. But 2 old ladies said, if this man could know what they can do.
The time came, however, for Rolf to leave Southwest and return to South Africa. His life till now had been filled with adventure and experiences that most people only dream of having once in a lifetime. But every step of the way, in every aspect of his journey, he was being led step by step, patiently yet deliberately by God. God had a plan for Rolf, and whether it was revealing himself in near-death experiences, such as sandstorms, malaria, or many other dangers of the African bush, or if it was seeing glimpses of him in the people he met, or even in reading the Quran, or enjoying the wonders of the nature Rolf loved so much, God spoke and was leading him to that point where Rolf would finally and completely surrender his life to him. Whether through his first marriage and the 3 wonderful children he had, Sybil, Andrea and Uta, or his period of return to Europe and subsequent coming back to South Africa, God was finding ways to speak to his heart and reveal himself to him. By the time he met Tanissa and got married for the second time, fathering 2 lovely daughters, Astrid and Monica, God had, through his providence, prepared the way through people and events in Rolf's life to bring him to that final and irrevocable point of full commitment, rebirth and baptism. It is with a sparkle in his eye and a fire in his heart that Rolf talks about those events that led to his discovery of the truth, as he so passionately refers to it.
That was in the Nubian desert, where I got trapped with sandstorms and no water, and I was in my life's end. And I asked God, if you are God, I want to know you. And only 45 years later, when I worked in Bergville, I was getting a lift with a Seventh-day Adventist who was, I didn't know what Seventh-day Adventist mean, but he gave me a lift to take a tender into Pretoria. On 4 hours, he preached to me the gospel, and I didn't want to know. That's a very good lesson to somebody that didn't want to know, to take in a car where you can't get out. When I was in Richards Bay, I sneaked up in a quiet room where we had upstairs a little room where nobody could see me, and I opened the Bible there secretly because I didn't want to be embarrassed, yeah? Because Hitler was so strong in me that a Bible is not he didn't forbid it, but he blasphemed it. But when I got so I wanted to look up what the mark of the beast is there. But eventually we had Corey Fenter coming to his Bible study there. On every Wednesday I was actually looking so forward to that meeting. And also I read the great controversy on Ellen White's writing, when I was very much impressed with that. I said to myself, how can an uneducated woman that has no education do such writings? I mean, she wrote the most precious books in the world. I couldn't understand that. I was on fire, like nobody else. Huh? I even put my kids off, so was I on fire. And they couldn't understand. So I said to them, why can't they see it like I do? And later on I understood that I mustn't play the Holy Spirit in person, I must just live the way. And I failed on that too. But God only knows.
Rolf's children remember him as a man filled with passion for life.
Because he used to do a lot of diving, so that was one of the impressive points to me as a child. You know, knowing that my father was Tarzan.
A father who loved his children, a grandfather who loves his grandchildren, and a man who was and is a seeker of the spiritual.
The conversations that one can have, especially in his later life, since I've known him, the spiritual conversation that one can always talk endlessly about.
Very adventurous, very caring, very good with children. He's such a good orpa to all his grandchildren, and loves them so much.
You know, the best dad. He could do. Nobody could, you know, say anything bad or do anything wrong about it.
At present, Rolf lives in Matubatuba in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, with his loving wife Tanissa. His son Andre and his two daughters, Astrid and Monica, also live in South Africa, while his daughter Uta lives in Australia and Sybil in England. If there is one thing Rolf will often say in relation to his journey to God and his constant searching for greater light, then it will be the truth, nothing but the truth. Indeed, he may very well have a point, because the scripture says the truth will set you free. And it is Christ who makes this a very personal and very specific application to himself when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Rolf did realize his dream, but much more than that, he met the God of the Bible and gave his life to him.